It's a pleasure to have you, Ariana. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm very, very, very excited to be here. About me, I'm originally from Romania. I've traveled around the world. I've started several companies in the education field. And then I've started to see how the world looks like around me, where the forests are being cut down. And this year I've decided to stay in California for a bit. And I do what I do, and I'm in the environment field because I am the happiest in nature. I see that forests are part of us, and I believe they're our health solution. So I want to do everything I can to preserve them. So I consider myself a solution activist focused on the environment. And what that means is that I offer, but also implement solutions on how to best preserve natural ecosystems, including forest ethics and forest governance. Last year, I was very fortunate enough to start an organization with which we actually acquired directly the forests that were really immediately about to be cut down. That was as a very short-term solution to what was happening in Romania. And this year here in California, I've started 100 forests to actually create a sustainable forest management model, focusing on financially incentivizing everyone to preserve forests instead of cutting them down. So that's where I'm at right now.
Well, great. Thank you for joining us, Ariana. It is a pleasure, and thank you for protecting not only our forest, but our whole world. So thank you. Next, I'd love to introduce Jacquelyn Stearns, which I have the honor of calling Jax. So Jax is an entrepreneur, nonprofit leader, opera singer, and social justice activist, currently pursuing her MBA here at UConn in Connecticut. She serves as the Vice President of Operations and Finance for the UConn Net Impact Graduate Chapter, and is honored to represent her team today on this panel. And Jax, we are honored to have you on the panel. So I'd love to turn it over to you for a word.
Hi, Heather, and thank you so much for having me. I am so honored and humbled to be here and with some truly phenomenal young women doing amazing work at the local, national, and international levels today. And Ariana, to do a financially incentivized for companies is absolutely a wonderful idea. And I think any business leader listening should take note of that. So as Heather said, I'm Jax. Jacquelyn was a little bit too formal for me. I'm originally from Connecticut, born and raised. And I've done, again, everything from being an opera singer to entrepreneur to currently an MBA candidate with UConn School of Business, where I'm the VP of Operations and Finance for Net Impact Graduate Chapter. A little bit about me. I really started getting involved in sustainability in a meaningful way after I left my job in New York years ago. And I decided it's now or never. And I packed up my apartment and my car and I left for 4 months for a cross-country road trip across the USA and Canada. And I traveled to as many national parks as I possibly could. And oh my goodness, they were so phenomenal. If you can visit them. And I got to Glacier National Park and it was absolutely beautiful, but the glaciers were melting. And one of the rangers mentioned that in about 20 years time, and he estimated, at the rate we're going, the glaciers won't be there anymore. And I want future generations to see the beauty that I was privileged enough to see. And that's why I'm involved with the Net Impact to make a positive impact on our world. And that's why I'm here today. So thank you.
Jax, thank you so much for joining. It's an honor to have you. It's my pleasure to introduce Lexi Haskins. Lexi is one of, and is another Global Choices Arctic Angel, and she focuses on environmental science researches for the Global Choices, an Arctic Angel Youth Ambassador, and a U.S. Fulbright Fellow from Denver, Colorado. She is passionate about bridging the science and social interface to promote a sustainable future. Lexi, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So basically here I research for Global Choices, and I focus a lot on
environmental health and human health, and climate change is a big one. And I also have a background in soils and bioenergy crops. And most recently on my Fulbright, I was doing nature-based solutions. And I was in Finland, and I was gaining a consumer insight on nature integrated products. So this is going to be an interesting panel for me, and I'm excited to learn more. Something that really just like keeps me going throughout this and being an environmental person, like activist in a way, is every day when I see the sunrise and the sunset, I know that it does its job to regulate a system, and it will never fail, and it will always balance and keep the world going while it's also being degraded. And I thrive to keep that my same mantra in life. And I know that we can all struggle, and sometimes it's good to keep something to look after. And I know that if I can keep my freedom to go to the mountains and to enjoy nature and to breathe fresh air, that I can do this and learn how to harmonize with our environment and the natural world and continue this cycle.
Well, thank you. Lexi, thank you so much. And thank you for all that you do to continue the cycle and to hold the earth. Let's jump over. This is fantastic. Let's go to Sena. Sena Wazer. Sena is 16-year-old climate justice activist and the co-director of Sunrise Connecticut. She's been fighting for the environment since she was 5 and is a junior at here in Connecticut at the University of Connecticut studying environmental studies. She's also a member of the Governor's Climate Action Plan, Equity and Environmental Justice Working Group. Sena, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Heather. I'm excited to be here. So I guess I'll just tell everybody a little bit more about me. So like Heather said, I'm going to UConn right now. I'm from Connecticut. And I'm really here today because as a young person, I'm really passionate about climate action and climate justice. And I'm just really excited about the possibility that the business community holds to really be a leader in terms of climate action. Growing up, my parents ran our own small business. We have a farm here in Connecticut. And so I also have a little bit of that side, a little bit of that kind of experience. And so I'm really excited to kind of bridge that gap and to get to see how like the business community can work with climate activists and others who are really pushing for climate solutions. So thank you for having me.
Great. Well, Sena, thank you so much for being here. Let's dive in. Let's start with wanting to open up with a question, and really, what do you think about the effects of climate change on them and on future generations? Let's go ahead and kick off the conversation. Ariana, I'm gonna put the conversation to start in your hands.
Wonderful. I've been thinking about this, and I think the short answer is that it affects my health and your health and everyone's health. And as I said previously, forests and like nature in general, this earth is our home. And I would personally love to live in a world where forests are abundant, where water is clean, where air is clean, where people are happy and passionate. And right now I see a bit of that, but I also see that, we live in concrete jungles and air quality is low and we're getting unhappier and we consume more and we act, about tasks very mechanical. But the hope is that I personally want to live and work with purpose. And I think my generation wants to do that as well. So for example, for me is that when I go to the ocean and to the rivers, I see plastic and dead fish. When I read about consumption and food production, I start crying. So the thing is that these are things that we all see around us, but because I'm such a positive, every time in a room when people talk about the problems, I'm the one listening and at the end asking, so what's the solution? Like, how can we start solving it? So because of that mindset that I've been building in the past years, I think I can say right now that, I'm kind of happy that we live in this time. I think, to be honest, is the best time that we can live in because now we have so many resources and so many passionate people like us here And we have the chance to get creative, connect to what's around us, connect to nature, and really, really innovate and create in a way that we've never done it before, because we have all these possibilities around us. So I'm personally excited about what is happening right now, and sad, of course, but excited because we have a solution. We can, come together and build a solution. And I'm curious to know what my fellow panelists are thinking about.
Absolutely, Ariana. And, the idea of staying, positive through this and trying to come up with solutions rather than dwelling on the present, it's so important. And, we have this infrastructure available, even in the midst of a pandemic, we're all able to collaborate and come together. So really, it is the best time for solutions because we have that ability to connect and to communicate. I'm here to represent my team at Net Impact. Collectively, we all represent a generation that truly and plainly cares about the future of our planet, the state of our environment, and the issues facing our climate. They are real and they are measurable. And quite frankly, they are scary. So this is not a youth problem. This is everyone's problem. And one of the things this pandemic has shown us all is that climate change is real. And what we do have is a real and tangible impact in the reduction of air pollution as individuals and as businesses. And this is our problem, all of us. It is perfectly possible to greatly reduce our pollution rates. This pandemic has proved that. This is no longer an impossibility that we thought it once was. And I do need to say that this isn't a black and white issue of, who failed to do what. The reality is earlier generations did truly remarkable work with the data we had, with the science and technologies available to them, and their ability to come together to make changes. And what earlier generations did is not a failure by any means. And I think that's really important to point out too, because I think that gets lost in the conversation sometimes. They absolutely propelled the movement with what they had available to them. And the younger generations, our generation, is able to take what they had achieved and propel it to the next phase. And based on the research and the science and the knowledge and that we have gathered over the past decades, especially even in the past 10 years, this is our last opportunity to create change, to create a lasting impact that can potentially reverse the damage we've done as a whole. So we need everyone. We need every generation, every individual, every business leader committed to doing their part so that the worst does not happen.
Yeah, and building off of what Jack said about the generations and I think it's important to not place blame, because it's not, if it wasn't for the previous generations, we wouldn't be where we are today. And placing blame does nothing, and we won't have any progress. And we've seen that with a lot of things in life, and we just have to keep going. And to me, I don't personally believe, and I think a lot of people, that one person caused climate change. It was society as a whole advancing so quickly, exploiting natural resources, but without thinking beyond an immediate benefit or the impacts that will be felt on the future generations. And it's hard to place that blame anywhere. So all we can do is work together, be positive about it, and keep going. And I think I want to say on a global scale, I can see impacts of climate change through the warming temperatures. And I see everything is a feedback loop. And that's just how life works, and especially the environment. And for example, the melting sea ice, it impacts the ocean currents, it impacts the nutrient flows for the animals. And it also is impacting our jet stream, which is a key crucial player in weather. And it dictates where you live in that weather. It doesn't just happen the jet stream in the Arctic, in the poles, it's everywhere. It goes everywhere. This is how the Earth works. And it's just like these unnatural cycles that are happening from the climate changing and the ice melting and the temperatures rising. It's costing a lot to our economy. Like, so NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they say that each extreme event in the US causes at least $1 billion in losses. And like, that adds up to a lot, trillions eventually, like it really does. And I try and think like, okay, so on this global scale, the sea levels are rising and the ice is melting, but how do I feel it locally? And here in Colorado, we've seen a lot less snowpack since like the 50s. And that means shorter ski seasons, which also affects the tourism industry and the economy. And then eventually, like our water supply, like 70% of it comes from the snowmelt. And when that's gone, where does that water come from? And now we face droughts and some of the biggest wildfires in Colorado history. And they've been raging here since late July, and it's destroying livelihoods and homes. And none of the fires are slowing down or being easily contained because of these high temperatures and droughts and moisture. And like the pine beetle kill is fueling this fire, and so are invasive species. And I think also, like, when was the last time we had precipitation? Like it snowed here in July, like snow, and we haven't had any precipitation since, and it's scary. And one thing I think we can do as a whole is we can restore our ecosystems. It's time to rejuvenate. It's time to invest in alternatives and stop burning and degrading and halt the global like greenhouse gas emissions. And we can dampen the effects of climate change.
Yeah, I think kind of going off what you're saying, Lexi, like we are already seeing those impacts, right? And I think a lot of times one of the things that we do with climate change is we only talk about it as this future thing, as, oh, it's this thing that you're going to deal with when you're whatever, 50. But we are seeing it now, you know, we're seeing the wildfires, we're seeing the hurricanes get stronger, and all that. So I think, you know, when thinking about climate change and the effect that it's going to have on our generation, on future generations, it's something that we're seeing now. And I think the scary thing for me is that I know it's going to get worse. And so I do try to be positive the way that you all are talking about. But I think that there's also a lot of fear there and a lot of like just kind of unsureness in the future and what the future holds. So it's kind of a balancing act between, you know, that fear does motivate, but at the same time, not having that kind of take over all of my action, and also keeping that hope there so that it is like, so that I am able to keep going and keep working through all.
Sena, Lexi, and Jax, thank you so much. Ariana, let's dive into a little bit some of the messages that you might have, you know, as our leaders, local and global, are joining us for today's summit. The business community, what messages do you have for the business community?
I personally, you know, I'm in this beautiful organization that you also mentioned, Global Choices, and I'm an Arctic Angel there. And one of the things that I really, really, really love about what they do, and I believe any company needs to start implementing this, is to be intergenerational, to have the decision-making table, people of all ages, a lot of diversity, so that this allows any organization to look at a problem from different angles. So that's the first thing that comes to me when, like, what can we do? What can a business owner can do? And, you know, supporting organizations like this one, because then automatically, you know, they support a lot of youths like myself and Lexi. And that's one thing that I think is very important, the intergenerational part. But also the other part is that personally with 108 Forests, with our organization, is that we've built this aspect of it where companies can become forest caretakers in our model. So I think once companies take charge and say, hey, I can actually work with smaller organizations, I can work with youth, or I can work with anyone to actually protect the forests, I think it's such a great impact. But also, I think these are two great options, but you know, as cheesy as it might sound, the change starts with you. And what that means is that I would propose for anyone in any organization to look at themselves and ask, where am I right now and where do I want to go? That implies investing in employees and helping them, you know, with the climate crisis and feeling greener and feeling that they can actually contribute in some way. And then, you know, the Royal Bank of Canada right now has just spoken against, you know, refusing to fund fossil fuels. So, you know, saying no to certain practices, I think that's also very, very important. So these are just 3 things that I think can make a change in an organization. What do you think, Jackie?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, knowing when to say no as a business and knowing when to say yes as a business, that is so essential, because not everything is as important to our bottom line as we'd like to believe. You know, a colleague said to me last week, actually, that do good internally as well as externally. So how do we elaborate and implement that as business leaders? We all desire to do good for this earth, you know, on a personal and individual level. And many of our organizations have begun to implement internal policies that limit our carbon footprint, sorry. And that's wonderful. And it is the beginning of sustainability. What we need to do now is to look at how to implement these practices externally in an effective manner. So how are we impacting our community at large? You know, we need to start strategically embracing where our money goes. You know, the age-old fact is true, money talks, right? So what are the missions and the impact of our suppliers and our vendors that we contract with are considering? You know, what are the banks that we keep our donations and our revenue in? What are they doing to combat their carbon footprint? You know, do they have a corporate social responsibility mission or vision or even office? You know, who are we investing in? Where are we putting our stake into the future? What science, sorry, that's my cat. What science and technologies, you know, in startups and existing organizations are we supporting through our investments? Money speaks volumes. We need to begin aligning where we place our resources and commitments with our core values and our mission to combat climate change. And I mean, I think that's the biggest thing for the business community, is that money does talk. Absolutely.
Yes, and I think that honestly, like the biggest threat that we face as society today is the climate crisis. And without a functioning world and natural environment, like we won't exist how we know it. So it's really a no-brainer to protect what we live off of and like invest wisely and think about like the precautionary principles of what you are actually investing in, like not investing in oil and gas exploitation in the Arctic or shipping through the Arctic or like even deep seabed mining in all these places that we don't really know about yet and like how it will impact us. It's like what I said earlier, it's the immediate benefit without thinking about the future like impacts. And it's really important to have these things in mind before acting. It's like take every single step of the way, like be cautious. And I want to say, like, for me, with this whole responding to climate change and the acts of how like businesses have impacted it, is I feel like I've become more of like an activist. To me, maybe not as verbally, but like I have dedicated my career to climate change and like the work that I do with Global Choices, and it's committed to protecting our global commons and protecting what we have left of the sea ice. And because it's Earth's thermostat, and like if we don't protect it, how are we going to survive and to have life as we know it and to give our like children, the future generations, like all these really cool places to see, like Glacier National Park. And it's also, I think, something that's really important is integrating the youth, like the intergenerational system, and to learn from each other's do's and don'ts and know what the business community has invested in and like degraded the forest. And it's like, oh, let's really not do that again. We know the impacts both on like the indigenous communities and the local communities. So it's really important to integrate everybody and get every single aspect that you are hearing, like throughout the business. Like, don't just make a single business decision. And I mean, I know it's easier said than done, but it's thinking about those little steps. And yeah, it's giving people voices to be heard and having a platform. Like for me, being part of Arctic Angels is really important because I can surround myself with like-minded people, get opportunities to be heard and have a platform. And it's really good because if we don't have these communities, I think that it's really not useful to have feelings of fear and of guilt about climate change. Because if we don't think that way, like we will withdraw from these issues at hand and think about something else, and then it just keeps building and building.
Yeah, and I think I would add on to what Jack said, because I think what you're saying about having knowing about your suppliers, and I would just add to that and say like making sure that your business model itself is sustainable and that you've really thought through I guess the science and making sure that your business aligns with the science, and then doing basically the same thing for your suppliers and making sure that they've thought through the science and that they that they align with the science. And I know it's a lot more complicated than that, and it can be hard to find other suppliers, but just doing the best you can in terms of that. And then adding on to what Ariana and Lexi were saying about intergenerational, like having youth there helping make decisions, I would also add just more like diversity in general, and having the people who are on the front lines there with you, because in the US, right, we're seeing Black and brown, low income, indigenous communities are being affected first and foremost by climate change. And so I would really encourage people and business leaders to have those who are being most affected there when you're making those decisions, to have their input, because I do think that's really important and is missing a lot of the time. Right now, I'm on the Governor's Council on Climate Change, as Heather mentioned. And although it's a little bit different because we're coming up with policies for the governor, there is a severe lack of representation, I guess. And I'm, always the youngest person in the meetings. Once in a while, there will be another college student. But also, in terms of representation more broadly, it's not a particularly representative space. And so I just think we need to change that. And that's something to definitely work on.
Sena, thank you so much. Lexi, Jax, Ariana, thank you so much. I am excited to pivot a little bit to open up the space for questions from the audience that have been coming in. And I'm excited to introduce Emma Wilkinson. Emma is going to be fielding these questions. She's the coordinator of Global Choices Arctic Angels, and it's a fast growing network of angels. Emma, I like to think about you really holding the heart of the Arctic Angels as they start to really grow. She's worked as a field leader of an island-based sea turtle conservationist project, mentoring a large, diverse group of volunteer researchers. She is currently embarking her postgraduate studies in MSc Environment, Politics and Society at University College London. Emma, thank you so much for joining us and fielding some of these questions for the panelists today.
Thank you so much, Heather. It's so great to join you guys and hear your perspectives and your calls to action, and I'm excited to see what will come from this conversation. As Heather said, I'm the coordinator of Global Choices Arctic Angels, and Arctic Angels are a global network of activists around the world with a global reach committed to protecting the global commons, and they're particularly speaking up against willful harm of the Arctic global commons and against destructive exploitation. So without further ado, I will jump straight into the questions because we all want to hear more from the panelists, I know. There was a great question that came in from Inga Ralph, and it is that you all belong to networks. How important are these to you, and how can they be leveraged to work with business to focus collectively on priority climate actions? So, oh no, jump right in.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I am part of a few beautiful networks. One of them, being with you, Emma, and I think it's crucial to engage more people and have people come as a community, because I believe that it takes a community to protect the forest, it takes a community to protect the ice, it takes a community to protect oceans. It's just based on communities. Like, an organization can't solve the problem, a person can't solve the problem. So engaging as many people as possible is very important. And also having businesses support such organizations financially with opportunities to speak in all sorts of ways. I think it's crucial to come together and work together to solve it. Additionally, like focusing on policy and working, the organizations and the businesses to create better policies. There are so many ways that we can just come together and think about what can we do and protect the global commons, as you said.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about: collaboration and inclusivity, intergenerational collaboration between organizations, collaboration between business and nonprofits, and everybody around the world, so that we can work as a global collective to address these issues. Perhaps if I have one more answer to that question from another one of the panelists, and then I will move on to another one.
Hi, yeah. So, with net impact, a lot of what we do can be in a consulting manner with businesses, and that's helping them to revise their business plans, perhaps, maybe actively engaging and creating a climate action plan that can be promoted within their business and taken advantage of right away. It's something that they can, discuss with their board of directors, advisors, whoever it may be, whatever kind of organization you might have. But business leaders in general, there are things that you can do to positively impact right away when it comes down to your employees and the overall benefit package that you allow them. A lot of places are allowing paid volunteer days for their employees to go and work with nonprofit organizations that align with their mission and values. And having that opportunity to really create a difference, and having a business that supports you in that mission, I think is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. So yeah, I would definitely say investing in your employees is something that businesses can do strategically right away.
Thank you so much. And so I will move on to another question that we've had come in, a simple one. How can businesses support your work? And if I go to Lexi, and then I'll come to you, Sena.
Yeah, so I want to say, to all the business people out there, ask yourself this question. Does your business exist to create value for the communities and societies that they serve? Or is your business mainly serving themselves and may in fact disrupt the value of the communities where they are, both environmentally and socially? So something to think about a little bit and reflect on later. But to me, it's so sustainability and promoting the business community can promote this it's about promoting it among society at large and starting within your platform. Think outside this box and have sustainability be inclusive throughout your entire business. And you can help bridge businesses and nonprofits together, because a lot of times nonprofits is where a lot of the core environmental work is happening. And it's something to think about, so people really only love what they know and they only protect what they love. And if they don't know it, how does somebody love and protect something? So it's about bringing people to understand the out of sight, out of mind, places that are out of reach, because if they can't physically feel that connection, it is so hard to protect something. And not everybody has that opportunity. And like ways that you can do it is to empower youth, to bring them, because we are the future generation, and to get our minds and our sights into these places. And like, for example, at Global Choices, we love to support people, and we would love to send some angels on a trip of a lifetime to go to like Antarctica with one of the world's greatest leaders in polar exploration. And then it will give them a chance to have a direct connection to like the largest climate summit, which is COP26 in Glasgow. And then it will be able to have youth actually have firsthand experience of bringing these polar climate change that they are seeing, and show it to these world leaders and experience it and have their voices heard. And it's like, it's simple to say, like, basically like youth will be our future, so invest in us.
That's so beautiful, Lexi. Thank you.
I love that.
Oh, go Sena. No,
oh,
go.
Sorry. Yeah, I guess I would just echo a lot of what Lexi already said. And then I would say, I mean, in terms of supporting our work, to me, the most supportive thing that you can do is take action on climate change and make your business model sustainable. Like, for me, that's kind of what it boils down to, because businesses have an opportunity to be a leader right now. We need leaders in terms of climate change. We desperately need that right now. And so if you can transition your business model to make it more sustainable, I think that's, to me, very supportive, and that's really helpful.
Thanks, Sena. And to come back to something Lexi just said that it always reminds me of when talking about bringing these places to other people, is how exciting it is that we have all of these tools at our disposal. We have social media, and we have all kinds of creative visual media, and we have the power to connect people to places like the polar regions, and to really communicate how important it is to protect them. And like Lexi said, that's something you can invest in. And like Sena said, really looking within at your business. And as Ariana said at the start of the panel, which I think is exactly linking to Sena there, it starts with you, and looking at your business models. So yes, and I will move on to a third question that we have. What elements of your approach to climate justice would you like to see adapted into business models and practice?
Can I jump in on this one, or Ariana, are you jumping in on this?
You can start.
Okay. I think that climate justice is a huge word, and everybody can define it differently. But for me, I think one of the biggest things is intergenerational participation, because when we are truly heard, when everybody is heard, it makes a big difference. And allowing young people to be seen on a higher level, and like young people in diversity in leadership roles. And it's like my intergenerational experience at Global Choices is really empowering, because I have input at each step, and I'm heard and I'm listened to. And it's not just a jump over the youngest people, don't go to the bottom. It's make your way through everybody, hear it all. And it's really important. That's how like justice is being heard, and you are that way. And like Emma and I were talking before, and she mentioned difference between like engaging youth and integrating youth. And it's really important to know the difference, because it's about everyone being involved in a process. And like, it's exactly what every single justice should be, but especially like climate justice.
Can I add something to that, Emma?
Yeah, of course.
I love what you said, Lexi. I think something that I've been personally researching, so since I've started to become more and more active in the field, I've started to go talk to the ones that are actually, we say that they do the harm, the ones that are like polluting, the ones that are cutting down the forests, and so on. And because I'm focusing more like on the forest side, so that's my expertise, I asked them like, why do you cut them down? Why do you do it? It's old forests. And the same applies with the ice and deep mining sea. And they looked at me very vulnerable and very open. And they're like, I need money. These are the people that, you know, they've been trained to use their hands to do work. And they were saying to me, well, look, I don't know what else I can do. They live around this, like they live in these communities around the areas that, you know, are getting exploited. And they, after I asked them, why do you do it? Don't you, like, aren't you like sad? And they're like, yeah, I'm very sad, but I need the money. However, look, if you come to me right now and you give me a different job, I will take it. I will take it right now. Do you have a job to give me that is green? And that happened like a few years ago, and last year specifically as well. And I'm like, no, I don't have a job. Like, do you know how to code? These people don't know how to code. So I think part of the solution is also to create green local jobs that people can switch from doing, you know, harm, because it's not enough to say stop doing it, because we need, the truth is, like Jackie was saying, you know, focusing on money, we need money. Like people are financially incentivized to do that, sadly or happily. But it's important to, you know, switch the focus in like the jobs as well, and engage them and say, okay, now we in the Arctic, we give you different jobs to protect it. In the forests, instead of cutting them down, we give you, you know, other green jobs, which are like a lot. And that's one of the things we focus on the forest caretaker system, where, you know, companies can actually come and give different jobs. But that's another story. So that's what I wanted to add as well, that it's important to create jobs.
Thank you so much, Ariana. Okay, I'm going to pass back to Heather, but thank you, Heather, for giving me the opportunity to lead this Q&A, and thank you to all the panelists. It's really been amazing to hear all of your perspectives. So thank you.
Emma, thank you for joining us, and thank you for assisting in this conversation, everything that you do. I want to turn it right back over. I know we are running out of time, or perfectly in time, as time is time, but I want to just see if we had the panelists could give 30 seconds or less and piece of advice that the audience listening, or the future audiences that will listen to this panel, what they could do today. What action can they take today? Sena, I'll pass it right over to you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I would just say, oh, I'm getting some feedback. All right, it's better now. Okay, so I would say, you know, we all have connections, right? We've talked a lot about networks today. So use your network, you know, use your network to educate all of those people who you know about climate change, and make sure that they're taking, you know, climate action. And then I would also just encourage you to really push, to push people who run a business, who have who hold an elected office, to do more, because those are the leaders that we really need to take action right now. I'll also drop my contact information in the chat, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions or want to follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, Sena. Fantastic. Lexi, right over to you for a quick 30 seconds or less.
Yeah, so I want to say that to businesses, your money holds power, and businesses can act to be more sustainable and to help the environment so much faster than policy and government. Like, it is what it is. And we have to act smart, and we can't wait around for it. So like, invest where it feels right environmentally. And like, I keep repeating myself with this, but like, the intergenerational aspect is so important. And like, find creative ways to invest in the youth. And like, if you need help, contact us, like globalchoices.org. We are more than happy to help. And bringing like sustainability into your business and your personal life, preach it every day to other people, promote it by simple acts, and like, just be a leader. And I want to say like one little blurb that like reminds me to be more environmental, and I remind myself every day, is like, there is no such thing as a way, and out of sight, out of mind does not exist.
It's beautiful, Lexi. Thank you so much for sharing. Ariana, right over to you.
The obvious thing is that I would invite you to support organizations like Sena's, Lexi's, Jackie's, like mine, and act as a community, and come together and see how can we support each other, how can we collaborate, how can we invest together. that seems the fastest one.
Fantastic. Ariana, thank you. Thank you. Jax?
I'd say this is our last opportunity to slow global warming before it's simply too late. We are responding with the voices of past generations, and we are emphasizing and we are screaming that there is no more luxury of tomorrow because tomorrow has come. And as business leaders, we need actionable plans, and we need immediate action that will produce effective and measurable results for the sustainability of our earth. And I would just end with, I think all business leaders need to remember this: do good internally to do good externally.
What a powerful message, Jackson, from all of you. As I mentioned in the beginning of this panel to start with, that many of today's youth will live beyond the next millennium. We know that decisions made in the past jeopardize the future, and the decisions made today will have a dramatic effect on the future of our planet. Thank you all today for the panelists. Thank you for being our future. And thank you all for participating in today and the Summit for Climate. Thank you all again. Thank you so much.
Thank
you for having us.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well.